ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome from my side. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are based. Welcome to this second session of the Sustainable Chemistry Club, advancing UNEP's 10 objectives and guiding considerations for green and sustainable chemistry. My name is Alexis Bazzanella. I'm the director of the ISC3 Innovation Hub, and I will be the moderator today for this session. I ask everyone to please mute your microphones unless you are a speaker and about to speak, so that we don't have any background noises. Thank you very much. Whoever has not attended our previous session, let me briefly introduce you to what we are doing here. So the Sustainable Chemistry Club has been founded last year as a joint activity of the International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center and the Science and Technology Park in Pune. Last year we have focused on sustainable chemistry in different industrial sectors. And for this year, we have joined forces with a UN Environment Program to focus on, as I said, the 10 objectives and guiding considerations for green and sustainable chemistry. And the setup is that we have 5 webinars where we respectively look in particular at 2 of these objectives and focus on them. So this is the second webinar in that row, and we will have a deep dive on objectives 3 and 4, 3 being sustainable sourcing and of resources and feedstocks, and 4 advancing sustainability of production processes. So this is the setup. Juanito, would you please briefly share the program so that we can show everyone what you have to expect? So it's the setup we have also been using for the first webinar. First, we will have Colin Hallam from UNEP introducing you into objectives 3 and 4. And then we have, again, 2 startups presenting, well, showcasing best practice examples on the 2 objectives, or green sustainable chemistry as an overall objective, of course. This will be followed up by a panel discussion, and then we have some conclusions, announcement for next steps, and closing at 4:35 Indian time. Yeah, so that's for the very brief introduction. And let's start with the program, and I want to introduce you to Colin Hallam. He is green and sustainable chemistry specialist at UNEP. He has joined UNEP as a consultant in 2021 with a focus on green and sustainable chemistry, the science policy interface for chemicals and waste. Colin has a master in sustainable chemistry from Spain, and worked in research and development for green energy technologies in the private sector and academia before joining UNEP. And so the floor is yours, Colin.
Thanks, Alexis, for the introduction. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I am just going to give
the sound is very bad. I don't know why. For some reason, it's a bit difficult to understand.
How about now?
Go ahead. We will live with it.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll speak a little louder. Maybe that's better. Yeah, so I'm just going to give a brief background on UNEP's work with green and sustainable chemistry. I apologize for anybody at the last webinar who already heard this, but after that, I'll get into objectives 3 and 4, which our awesome startups will be elaborating on later on the actions they're taking to advance them. So I'll begin in 2019 with the release of the Global Chemicals Outlook 2, which was
a review of the global chemistry enterprise. There were some key messages that were found. One being that hazardous chemicals continue to be released into the environment, causing harm to human environmental health, that the chemical industry is rapidly growing. And while these trends are concerning, they present an opportunity to take action to implement and enable chemical innovations. This was also found. But nonetheless, business as usual is not an option. So clearly changes had to be made. So UNEP sees the potential of green sustainable chemistry as building upon the green chemistry principles to encompass innovations that address important sustainability challenges. So you see a couple of them on the screen here: circularity, climate change, pollution. Green sustainable chemistry has the potential to address all of these major sustainability challenges that we're facing today. So taking the GCO2 into consideration, the potential of green and sustainable chemistry innovation at the 4th United Nations Environment Assembly, which is essentially, or has been described as the world's parliament on the environment, adopted resolution 4/8 on the sound management of chemicals and waste. So within this resolution, among other things, it welcomed the analysis of best practices in sustainable chemistry and requested UNEP by UNEA 5, which already happened, to develop manuals on green and sustainable chemistry. So the first of these manuals is available online on the UNEP Green Sustainable Chemistry website. It is the framework manual, and overall it looks to provide a high-level overview of scientific, technical, policy aspects of green and sustainable chemistry aimed at a very broad audience. So on the screen here, you see kind of the conceptual structure of the framework manual. The first half answering why do we need green and sustainable chemistry and what is it? And then chapters 5, 6, and 7, those are answering how. How do we achieve this shift that we need to green and sustainable chemistry? So at the recent UNEA 5 held just this past February 2022, member states welcomed this green and sustainable chemistry framework manual, and they encouraged its use as appropriate. So central to the framework manual are the objectives, which we'll be, focusing on today. They're a key part of using the framework manual. They range from green chemistry aspects, minimizing chemical hazards, to more sustainability, social sustainability aspects, such as protecting workers and developing solutions to climate change, to circularity. And overall, they are meant to promote innovation to unveil the full potential of chemistry such that it is compatible with and supports the implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. So while the objectives are certainly meant to be viewed holistically, today I want to just give a deep dive into objectives 3 and 4. They're very closely related, but they have some key differences, and we have some nice startups here to exemplify them. So objective 3, sustainable sourcing of resources and feedstocks. That's the use of materials and feedstocks without creating negative trade-offs. It can include the use of carbon dioxide as a feedstock, recycled chemical feedstocks, and advancing the sustainable use or minimizing the use of rare resources in chemical productions like certain rare earth metals. So a key aspect of this objective is to avoid those negative trade-offs. So when we're talking about bio-based feedstocks, but also other ones, it's recognizing the need to take a life cycle perspective when evaluating their use. So today, I don't want to give away what ProClean and Revi are going to talk about, but ProClean advances this objective through their strict use of plant and fermentation-based feedstocks to derive their products, while Revi promotes the efficient use of wastewater, which could be considered a sustainable feedstock through their products and services. So I'm trying to say there's different angles to approach these objectives, and there's different ways to contribute to achieving them. Objective 4, that's advancing sustainability of production processes, especially relevant for chemical engineers, as well as industrial engineers and managers of plants. So this includes chemistry innovation, which leads to enhanced resource efficiency, minimization of industrial waste generation, and fostering the reuse and recycling of chemicals and materials during the production processes. And a key approach to achieving this is through sustainable resource management and cleaner production. So we'll see, with Revi, through their sustainable wastewater treatment, those processes as an end themselves are a way to be more sustainable. They also can create useful products such as biogas. And then another key approach, which is very relevant to this objective, is biomimicry, so emulating processes found in nature. And we'll see more of that from ProClean with their fermentation processes, which will be really awesome to hear about. So zooming out from these objectives 3 and 4, achieving the transformation to green and sustainable chemistry will require achievement and action on all of the objectives. So this will require scaling up of companies with similar visions as ProClean and Revi, and action from the wider GSC innovation ecosystem like policymakers and NGOs and larger chemical companies to enable the scaling up of this action. So UNEP right now is really trying to make these objectives a useful resource to expand upon them with best practices, with examples, with enabling actions. So this series of events is really helping us to gather those examples, through ProClean and Revi and the other startups that are so graciously agreeing to participate and share their experiences. But I would ask people in the audience as well, if you're interested in sharing examples of something you've done at school or something you do at work, which are particularly relevant to one or more of these objectives, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to hear from you. My email will be on the next screen, and we would love to incorporate what your experiences are into the development of the continued UNEP portfolio. So thank you very much. Excited for the discussions to come. I hope everyone could hear me.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, Colin, thank you very much. We could hear you very well, no problem.
Okay, great.
It improved considerably. Okay, so thank you very much for this introduction into the 2 objectives, or the focus on the 2 objectives we are looking at today. And you already gave a perfect introduction into our 2 startups we are highlighting today. So I want to introduce you to the first startup speaker. That's Dr. Vanita Prasad. She's founder, director, and CTO of Revi Environmental Solutions. She is an environmental biotechnologist by training, with more than 28 years of experience in the field. She has graduated in science from University of Delhi, completed her master's and PhD in biotechnology under fellowships of the Department of Biotechnology and Central Scientific Industrial Research, the Government of India. She has worked as consultant for industry, also heading several R&D functions of various waste management companies, and she's she has floated her own company, Revi Environmental Solutions, in 2017. That's focusing on the improvement of conventional biomethanation, but she will tell us everything about that. So warm welcome to you, and we're curious to hear your story.
Able to see the slides?
Yeah, but it's not in presentation mode yet.
Now?
Now it's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you for introducing me and inviting me on this platform. So as mentioned by you, I'm basically an environment biotechnologist and trying to find out sustainable and economical solution for waste and wastewater treatment. For past 28 years, what I'm trying to do is I will be sharing with you how I got motivated to do this particular thing. it's a very little story that sanitation was an issue which I could see that people are living in a very pathetic kind of situations, and I wanted to improve that whatever knowledge I have. So that's how the story of my journey has started from my PhD itself. So these are the main issues which we are facing, not from this time, but for past, I will say 2 to 3 decades. There was a water scarcity, there is an energy crisis, there is a resource scarcity, and more climate change is happening. Global warming is there. So what is the resolution we have? That is the resource efficiency. Since I have started working on this thing, I could able to figure out that we have a very limited resource and the population is growing and growing, and due to urbanization, a lot of issues are happening. So when we say what resource efficiency, what is that means? That what is the meaning of resource efficiency? We wanted to have we are doing a lot of production. We are have to have a lot of products to be utilized by the society. So when we are designing a product, we have to see which kind of raw materials we are using, what kind of energy resources we need to produce that particular product, and how much emissions, or I will say how much waste we will generate by doing that activity. That is very, very important when we are designing any product. So that is where the resource efficiency is very important. Not only the green, everything. So we have to see where we will be dumping this waste, and that's how the story has been started, that we are dumping waste here and there, either the biological one or the industrial waste, from where I started my journey. So it's very important that whatever resource we are using and how we are disposing them. So when we are taking resource efficiency in account, we will be getting a lot of benefits, because whenever we are using a material and we are wasting some part of it, we are losing on cost, and we will have creating another problem. So resource efficiency is very, very important, and we need to keep in mind. So when we see the resource efficiency, we should see that how minimum material we can use. Means like we can see the material intensity per unit of service. Whatever we are doing, how much material we are using, how much carbon footprint we are creating, and then we are having how much less greenhouse gas emissions and less hazardous material, if we are using any hazardous material or not. That was my in back of my mind when I started my journey. These were the key points which I was having in my mind when I started the journey. And the definition of waste, since we have talked a lot about the waste, because we have whenever we are doing a production, we will be creating something. So classical definition of waste is a leftover. It is something which is left over our doing some activity. But in my opinion, waste is a resource which is placed at a wrong place at wrong time, and we need to find a right place and a right way to use it. That is what is my philosophy, or I had this philosophy in my mind, and I started working on to this particular aspect, that people are called, and I was focused mostly on to the organic waste, which is in huge quantity, especially in India. We find it in everywhere. There is a wastewater which is generated. There is a solid waste which is generated and dumped here and there. So targeting on that particular waste, I started to look for a better solutions. So when I went into depth of this, and everybody know that the prevention, first thing is how we have to see how we can minimize the waste. That is what we want to do. Then we want to reuse the waste. Then we want to recover the waste, and then only the disposal part. So waste has to be utilized, and this philosophy is with everybody. But how to do this? That is very, very important. So when I looked into the industry, I was working with the industry, and when I looked into their all parameters, I saw that there is an overlap. When we use less of water, we need to treat less of water. We need less energy to treat them. we are using less material to treat them, we need less chemicals. So this is the chart. We can see that all of them are very, very interconnected. We use something in excess, it will result in other things automatically. So if we want to take care of one particular thing, it will be, if we say that we are taking care of chemicals, we will be automatically taking care of water also. That is how this whole scenario is interlinked. So and that's why when we are talking about all the things, we are talking about circular economy, that is wherein we are using raw material in a way, in a circle, that the product of when we are processing something, we have something out, and then we have a technology to recycle it or to reuse it. That is where the basis of circular bioeconomy. And when we look into this, we will be looking at to the nature, and nature has provided us with all the cycles, like water cycle we have, carbon cycle we have, sulfur cycle we have. That is all going on from one way, I will say one form to other, using the microbial consortia, or I will say the microorganisms present in the nature. What Revi has started working is, nature is providing energy, solar energy. We all know there is solar energy, there is wind energy, there is water energy, and there is an energy which every cell is creating. So every cell has this power, has a way to create the energy. And that's where I started focusing on that, how these particular metabolisms or these particular biochemical reactions can help us to give to make us more energy efficient or energy sufficient, as well as we can produce a lot of nutrients. So this is basically the closed loop model which we can use for organic waste. Organic waste can be collected, can be used in anaerobic digester, and then you can have a biogas. This is the natural way which was known 3 decades ago also. So I focused on to this, the heart of this particular process, that is anaerobic digester, and I focused on to the microorganisms which are working on this. So from there I could able to see that a lot of combinations can be done to recover I will say the energy stored in these particular materials, which are natural materials. Even man-made plastic material can be used for doing a lot of things using microbial cultures. So we are trying to develop those kinds of technology. So what I was focused was to understand this chemical reaction. There is a complex biomass and that needs to be hydrolyzed. When we are hydrolyzing it, a lot of organic material is generated. We can get a lot of I will say the precursor material for various industries if we isolate this particular product from here itself, not taking it to the last level, that is methanogenesis. That is the one aspect. We can have a lot of material, like we can have butyrate, which can be a precursor for the bioplastics. We can have acetic acid. We can have other materials when we are using these particular microbes. But methanogenesis was one of the main pathway which we were using to generate our energy source, which is called as biomethane. So I focused on to the developing first product for methanogenesis. The problem was that methanogenesis happens only in the last stage. The first 3 stages has to happen, then only the methanogenesis can happen. So this is the main complex synergy in the anaerobic digester happening. So what I have done is I have chosen right microorganism and created an anaerobic consortia to really go ahead and do this anaerobic path, to follow the anaerobic pathway, because this is the energy tower they have. They will be using, the microorganism will use this only when they are into a synergetic way. So these are the granules which we have produced. These are 650 different microbes which we have put together to work on for any kind of waste, organic waste material. It can be a wastewater or the solid waste. If we do this, use this particular microorganisms and right kind of reactor, then we will be saving not only onto our prints, we will be having less of water footprints, we will be having whole water which is recovered and can be used as a fertilizer. So these are the products which we have created. Basically what we are providing is an right kind of microbial consortia along with the health tonic. They can use this health tonic to maintain these microbes inside the reactors. That's what we have done, and we have tested all the kinds of waste material, any waste material from aerobic sludge to agriculture waste to kitchen waste to segregated OFMSW, anything, any organic material passed through these microbes can be converted to biomethane, and the plant can run 365 days by supplying these right kind of nutrient and cultures. So now we are focused on to the if we are doing biomethane, we are not still decarbonizing a lot of things. So we need another important fuel, that is hydrogen. Hydrogen produced via these microorganisms can be a green, totally green hydrogen, because it will be using a raw material which is green, and then we will be using a pathway which is not using any material which is which nature has shut off, or I will say any heavy materials or any metals or something. It's only the fermentation process, and we need to focus on that. So now we are focusing on to the dark fermentation and photo fermentation, and a combination of all these to produce energy. And these are some of the recognitions we have got. Our aim is to provide water for all as well as food for all. That is what we are focusing: water, food and energy for all by using the local materials we have. That is what is the focus of the review.
Okay, thank you very much, Anita. A very interesting presentation. Bit long, but so we're a bit behind schedule, but I hope we can catch up a bit later on. So next speaker, second startup, is Karthikeyan KS. He is currently CEO of Proclean Technologies, a company specializing in natural, non-toxic and biodegradable products, which replace conventional chemicals in a variety of industry sectors. He's a chemical engineer and by training also has an MBA degree, and has spent more than 2 decades in specialty chemicals industry in different leadership roles at large enterprises like BASF and McKinsey. But I don't want to steal more of your time, so very warm welcome, and please go ahead.
Thanks, Alex, for the lovely introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all here. So I just want to quickly start with what is the purpose of Proclean's existence. So as we understand in terms of the problems we face with respect to climate change and related environmental effects which is happening, and then the potential the future world is facing in terms of the risk around this. So our mission is clearly in terms of do our bit in making this world a better place, right? Basically to focus on how we can conserve the critical natural resources, reduce the pollution, reduce the usage of toxic chemicals, another one which is kind of detrimental to this environment. At the same time also, if you want to make it reachable to wider audience, you should also save costs, which will help them to also make it commercially attractive as well. So in line with this, as our tagline states, green chemistry that delivers, we focus on 4 areas which actually kind of, I would say, helped us to kind of enable the myth that typically green solutions are not either not performance-wise matching, or it's expensive or not adaptable, right? So we continue to focus on all our developments where In terms of performance, we ensure that our products are meeting the other alternative chemical options which is available in the market, or most of the times it's even better, delivers more than what they are currently using. At the same time, it's easily adaptable as well, because it's very important that you need to kind of give a product which is like plug in without any much changes in terms of what they are using already in terms of OPEX or CAPEX. Cost, yes, while green means it's not necessarily expensive as well. So we are able to kind of meet in terms of commercial requirements as well. We are quite competitive. And finally, of course, it's truly sustainable. How is something which I'll talk about more in terms of how we are much greener than what many other available options in the market. Now, core technology platform, we have two platforms. The core one is Probiotic Platforms, which is primarily the good bacteria. The probiotics means the good bacteria. So that's a core platform. So we start with a consortium of good bacteria, a microorganism of say 20 different species, which is a core starting point, and fermentation of this, which helps us to kind of build products, either in terms of the microorganisms functioning themselves or the metabolites they create out of the fermentation, which helps us to kind of build the alternative chemical solutions for various application segments. Now, while we started with this platform, during the journey, we understood that not every solution can be via probiotic. There were limitations, but at the same time, we had a specific boundary condition. So we don't want to stick beyond the green chemistry or the green technology platform. So alternatively, we started developing a bio-based platform wherever we can't find a solution via probiotics, which are primarily a plant-based or fermentation-derived renewable sources, which helps us to complement the probiotic platform. So in today's agenda, specifically focusing on objective 3 and 4 in terms of feedstock and production process, I'll start with in terms of a feedstock strategy, right? So basically our focus is more in terms of starting with naturally derived ingredients and create a truly sustainable solution. So two major building blocks, one, as I mentioned, is a consortium of naturally occurring microorganisms, the probiotic culture. And to ferment this, we need an energy source, which is basically a sugar source, which also we locally source from immediate vicinity, which is basically jaggery coming out of sugarcane juice. So these are the two primary building blocks, which leads to a fermentation formation of biochemicals. And there are a few other very small components, which again are either bio-based or renewable carbon-based ingredients, which act as additional nutrient or as a stabilizers, etc., for these biochemical solutions. So as I mentioned, we have a strict boundary conditions. So R&D, whatever product we develop, we ensure that it's at least 80% bio-based. It's readily biodegradable and completely non-toxic. So with this, we have created a unique platform where a combination of, say, naturally derived ingredients as a starting point with the two technology platform, probiotic and bio-based, which helps us to address multiple specialty chemicals application segments in the market with multiple core functionality like surfactants, odor control, anti-scalant, anti-corrosion, etc. These are the functions we're able to extract out of this fermentation platform. Currently, our business is the top 4 ones in dark greens, which are textile, paper specialty, industrial and home cleaning, and leather chemicals, where we have commercial business for processing of a textile or a paper or leather, etc. And we are also multiple other segments we are working on at various stages of commercialization. Talking about, so far I spoke about in terms of how green our products are, starting from naturally derived ingredients. Now, sticking to the objective 4, we also want to speak about in terms of how sustainable our production process is, right? If you can see it as compared to a typical chemicals which start from, say, crude oil based, where it goes through various stages, starting from crude extraction to refining to petrochemical production, again to downstream processing into multiple specialty chemicals, right? So at every stage of the process, there's significant carbon footprint in terms of energy consumption or the waste generation, etc., right? Again, our process is very, very simplified. As I mentioned earlier, naturally occurring microbes is a starting point. And just want to highlight in terms of a unique manufacturing process where we do our fermentation in ambient conditions, right? Typically, a fermentation is normally done in a controlled conditions, which requires either energy in terms of heating, cooling, etc., or also in terms of controlled various parameters in terms of clean conditions, etc., which again requires capex. So since we do in a very ambient conditions, our consumption in terms of energy is very, very low. Also, there is no additional requirements in terms of capex, etc. Hence, our capex is very, very low. And also, literally the process literally doesn't generate any waste. The entire fermentation broth becomes a usable product, which I'll also explain in subsequent slide how it's different from conventional fermentation. Because of this, our carbon footprint is much, much low in terms of production process. And also in terms of product safety, it's highly safe to use, whether in terms of employees here in the production site or manufacturing the product, or in terms of users who are consuming a product. Also, just to compare with how we are different from even typical fermentation, while a typical fermentation requires, as I mentioned, control conditions, and also the fermentation results in a broth which contains typically a 10 to 15% of the usable product, right? So rest majority has to be kind of extracted out of this core product, which means there's significant downstream processing required in terms of purification, concentration, or distillation, etc. Right? So while, as I mentioned earlier, our process requires a fermentation, the entire fermentation broth becomes the usable end product. So which means that absolutely there is no wastage, and number two, there is no downstream processing at all, which means there's typically about a 60 to 80% of production cost post fermentation involves a downstream processing, so which we have eliminated as well. So this makes our process very low cost, low energy intensive, which also makes us, as I mentioned in the first slide, how we are also making it a commercially viable proposition also to our end users. So this is a glimpse of our manufacturing facility, a very simple, but I would say a very structured setup, which is highly modular setup, which means that we can easily replicate the capacity in a very short period of time, which means a matter of 6 to 9 months. Low capex, no wastage, as I mentioned, almost nil effluent. The only effluent which goes to our ETP plant is the wash water of the fermentation tanks, which we do after every batch. So that's the only effluent we generate. As I mentioned, of course, low energy and no downstream processing. So we also want to measure the impact we want to create. So we did a third-party study in terms of a complete total life cycle, starting from raw materials to manufacturing to usage, right? So kind of cradle to grave analysis. And this third-party agency helped us to doing a comparative study vis-a-vis our products and the equivalent alternative chemical options available in the market. And based on the study, it came out that our products are able to reduce about 80% in terms of carbon footprint compared to the equivalent chemicals available today in the market, right? And in terms of, just to put a number in terms of how much impact we have created, about say close to 10,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions we have saved so far in terms of by using the Proclean products so far by our end users. While still it's very small drop in the ocean, but I think we believe that it's a significant impact in terms of a starting point, and there's significant opportunities for us to kind of scale it up as we kind of maximize and reach out the number of users in the market. So so that's all I have. So just to kind of recap, as I mentioned, Proclean's focus is clearly in terms of taking total life cycle into account and focus on how to make this world a better place to live in by reducing pollution and conserving natural resources, at the same time saving cost to our users. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we directly start into our panel discussion. I want to welcome another speaker for the panel. That's Dr. Smitha Birka. She holds a PhD from the University of Massachusetts Lowell and has worked in different positions. Well, everything related to plastics, to the plastic sector, and with her background, she has also started her own venture, a non-profit organization that's called 5R Cycle Foundation, based in Kandivali in Mumbai. And the idea is to create awareness and infrastructure on waste management through this platform and tackle the problem of rising waste issue in India. So that's, again, a sourcing topic here. So welcome. And Colin, you're of course also welcome to join me as a co-moderator now. Starting perhaps, well, that's something for all you guys. You have shown, and I think also that's also true for you, Smitha, lots of benefits, environmental benefits, so quite clear rationale why you're doing that and what are the benefits for the society. But is that actually what you're doing? Is that also a business driver? So does that help you advance your business, or do you also experience downsides in any directions? Smitha, you may start because we haven't heard you before.
Yeah, sure. So I think both ways, like the material that we get is also a driver for us to run this entire venture, but it took us about 2 years of groundwork to get this thing going, because like Vanita ma'am said, like, you know, like the waste is a resource, but this awareness is not there. And the basic problem that we face is, you know, it's the collection and how you can store it, how you can make systems that are scalable, from collecting to an individual, to a society, to a big community. You have to have different systems in place. And in fact, any process I believe has to be scalable, and that's exactly where we face challenges in terms of scaling up when we want to get the resources.
What about you? Katjan, do you have any anything to say about that?
I think in terms of challenges, what we face, luckily, in terms of awareness, the segments we are catering to, there's much more awareness in terms of adapting the products which are much more greener or safer to use, etc. Right? The challenge is in terms of how to make it also commercially attractive enough, compelling enough for them to go for, right? That's something we have by experiencing that the places where we have kind of established value and showed them, yes, it's a green product. At the same time, it's also help you to kind of save cost or other added benefit into the performance. I think there's significant willingness to kind of adopt it and also to pay premium, right? So
okay, interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you actually see, well, I guess probably if you compare with your substitute products with conventional products, there might be higher costs in production and resource costs, but there is willingness. You see market demand, and you also see that customers are willing to pay a premium for it. Did I understand that right?
That's okay. Right. That's right. Right. So more than our cost base, more in terms of what value we can establish for the customers, right? So if you're able to do that, there's definitely a willingness to adopt.
Okay. Perhaps to all of you, all of you emphasize that waste should be considered as a valuable resource, but at the same time, that also means that it we might see a competition for this valuable resource. So do you experience that? Let's say for Katjan, I can imagine that looking at sugar sources, that there are of course many competitive pathways to valorize that, and Vanita, that's probably also true for the type of waste you're addressing. So is that something you experience?
So yeah, so biomass availability, we are looking at the waste material. There is limited material which is available, and there are a lot of technologies around that. So we need to figure out which is the best, or which will be giving us the best possible material which is available in that waste. So like when we have started working on this, we were focusing on only onto the methane production. But since we understood the metabolism and we could able to figure out that the process control is done. So now what we are trying to do is we want to produce hydrogen from the same material in the same unit by just having another fermentation tank wherein we will be doing hydrogen. So that can be supplied as a bioethane at this point of time, so that the normal infrastructure remains the same for the energy supply. But later on, since this technology will further develop, we can have only hydrogen which can be supplied, because there is a lot of other technologies has to be matured before this whole hydrogen energy can be really used for transportation or something else. So that's where we have to evaluate the technologies which are developing and taking maximum out of this waste material. So like we are working on bioethanol. So when we have taken out ethanol, there is still a lot of carbon available, which needs further utilized. As Kartikan is mentioning, that fermentation broth itself can be used for some other material. So that's how these whole thing has to be considered, and we can take out maximum from these waste materials. Yes, waste material will sooner or later will become limited. So we have to be very carefully choose the technology which we want to use. So the material which are very dry, we can use for requesting, but which are not very dried material, we should not use for requesting, because we will be using a lot of energy there. That's what we have to select while taking these technologies, the cleaner technologies.
Okay, I guess that goes along with what you described in terms of the hierarchy for waste management. I don't know, Smitha, is that also an issue that you have? I don't think that you lack plastic waste at the moment in India, but nevertheless, you might also think about what is the right level of recycling. So could you please perhaps enlighten us a bit on your story and what you're actually doing?
Yeah, sure. So basically, when it comes to waste, I think we can also categorize the quality of waste, because the less contamination is there, the more it is useful. So, like you mentioned, like with respect to good quality waste, it is very competitive and it's very difficult to get. Like you get a lot of bad quality waste lying around everywhere, but it's of no use. Um, for us, basically, we are a non-profit organization where we try to teach people to segregate their, garbage into three categories of dry, wet, and hazardous. And after that much training and that much education, they finally start the process, and then we go and collect that. And therefore, our collection volume is very, very small in terms of what the local municipal corporation will collect, because the number of people actually practicing this is really less. So that's why, though we have abundance of plastic waste in India, but the quality of waste is what makes a difference, and that's where we struggle. And obviously, that also drives the sales realization of that waste. The less contaminated, the more you can, make it economically feasible for your entire operation to run. Otherwise, nobody is going to, buy it.
Okay. So
To add here that segregation is really, really important, like Smitha is saying, especially when we are considering a city waste, then the responsibility of every very accountable, that the source segregation has happened. If it has happened at household level, then it is very easy to take all these fraction of waste to a particular technology. Samita, do you agree with this?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Because I think the more people segregate it well, I mean, that's what we are basically trying every day to source segregate it so that it reduces the efforts of everybody in the supply chain.
By the way, I forgot to mention that if you as audience have any questions you want to address, please use the chat function so we can take that also. Okay, so let's say from a general point of view, what would you consider as the key factors that help you or that can help advance sustainable chemistry and your ideas towards a concrete business? So did you encounter anything that was really helpful to you in the innovation ecosystem?
Okay. I think for me, especially, I basically struggle with two things. One is, products that are being used, and when it's sustainable products that are being used. Um, and I think in the end, all of this, what is made, how do you dispose even that? For example, let's say you make a chemical which is apparently sustainable, but what's the end goal of that? Like, is that also sustainable? So that's where the whole thing gets very complex. Like, for example, people tell you to use a bamboo toothbrush, or they ask you to use steel or glass with respect to like replacing plastic. But what's the end of that is something I always get confused with about, having a sustainable packaging and not so sustainable packaging, and where does that all end is, a big question to all of us is, though we generate sustainable products, how do you also have or ensure that they are disposed the same way?
Yeah, understand. Kachikan, I guess you wanted to
Right.
start off.
So one thing what we strongly believe in any of the new developments in terms of solution we have is at least to have minimum one function on top of whatever the green selling point we have, which will kind of be differentiated as against existing solutions in the market, and also plugs the unmet gap, right? So that's something which we feel is very important to take this sustainable package to maximum users possible, right? And of course, once you maximize usage, of course, you also become commercially attractive as well. So that's very key important, because unfortunately, sustainability alone as a value prop is something which is still not widely accepted, right? It's a very small portion of the market, right? You club it along with something which plugs the unmet needs, gives additional value. I think that will make a long way to make this sustainable proposition a much more attractive solution.
Okay. Very open statement. Thank you. Manjo, what about you?
Can I add 1 or 2 points, please?
Okay. Could you briefly introduce you?
My name is Surya Rao. I'm 79 years young chemical engineer.
Okay.
Right. I think you should also address the agricultural waste, not only industrial, because the future is in liquid biofuels. And India being a large agricultural country, you must have programs by which the feedstock is produced by the spoke and whatever the one wheel. So you produce the liquid fuels at different places and they get collected and go to things like refineries as an alternate feedstock. That will be a dimension, not only industrial waste, but also focusing on agricultural waste with small plants coming. The reverse of the milk revolution we have in India. The milk is produced in villages and combined, collected, and brought to a central place. Similarly, agricultural waste could be considered to be a source of a renewable fuel, which is expected to go to about 25 million barrels per day from today, 100 million barrels per day of fuels.
Okay,
so this
thank
is
you.
one area green chemistry can help.
Thank you for that addition. So you're totally right. So more sources we have to look at, and I think biofuels is one of the competitive pathways I was talking about that might also affect of what you are doing, and if you try to scale business, that you enter some competition with other companies which are active in different other fields, I guess. But Vanita, do you have anything
Yeah.
to add in terms of the factors
Surya
that
sir,
help you?
I want to mention that we could able to use all kinds of agriculture waste. At this point of time, we can utilize any agriculture waste for, we are not focused on to say bioethanol only, but biomethane. Yes, we can use any agriculture waste. I have mentioned all the waste. And for hydrogen, right now I am doing the pilot experiment for using this agriculture waste for producing hydrogen. So yeah, we are trying, but the main problem using agriculture waste is solubilizing the waste. The converting that lignocellulosic material into the glucose is the main rate limiting step for biofuels production, and even it can be a liquid or gas. So we are focusing on to the biohydrolysis. So we are producing an consortia which can hydrolyze this. So at this point of time, we are using those microbial consortia for decomposing this waste to compost, as well as to the sugar material which can be used later. So yes, we are means like people are focused on to developing these technologies, and this is very important to understand the metabolism around the hydrolysis of these waste material.
Okay. Colin, do you have any follow-up questions on what was discussed so far? But you're still on mute. No, you're still on mute. So I continue, no problem. Let's say if you consider what you have done so far and your business, what would you give as advice for other chemical startups with regard to sustainability, and let's say also on the UNEP's objective? Is that something that an entrepreneur can use as a tool? Is that helpful to implement green and sustainable chemistry? So 2 questions in one.
I think core is in terms of developing a versatile technology, right? Because there are a lot of challenges with respect to starting points you have, like what say Smitha and Vanita also spoke about in terms of handling the various waste, right? The consistency, etc., right? Even in our process, right? In terms of the variations we face, right? So I think the core technology should be versatile enough to handle all the ups and downs. If you account for in terms of managing the complexities and then able to kind of offer solution irrespective of your feed quality variations, I think that's something I would say will be a big success point for you, because this is where I think I would say biggest challenge with respect to the companies, I mean, scaling up a technology which probably works at a lab scale to a commercial scale.
What about you guys? Smitha?
Yeah, so I think I totally agree with Karthik sir that any technology, in fact, probably I can give an example that we process expanded polystyrene, which is thermocol, and particular technology that we are able to like process thermocol from all types of densities and sources. So if you have technologies definitely that can process, and handle a different variety of waste, I think it will also give the entrepreneur a wider range of options to work with rather than limiting themselves to a particular type of resource only.
Anita, you want to add something?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the new people who are coming into this green technologies has to evaluate the existing technologies. As I mentioned, there is a lot of options available. So we have to see that whatever existing technologies are offering, what better we are designing when we are designing a new technology, how much carbon footprint we are reducing. That is very important to see. It will be from the same concept that we have to see the cradle to grave kind of thing when we are developing a new technology. So whosoever is coming into the greener business has to evaluate that what are the process they are using to procure that particular material, then process, and then actually delivering to the customer. So every step is very, very important to understand how we are doing. So doing a product at this point of time is really challenging when we are using the greener technologies.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight. We have quite an interesting another case study, a very brief case study in the chat if you follow that. So that's on recycling of consumers' textile waste and textile waste management because of the hazardous impacts, and reuse, repair, and reintroduce used clothes to needy poor people in India who can't afford new clothes. So of course, that's also another pathway. That's quite interesting. Perhaps one more question that's perhaps more directed to Katikan, because you're actually doing chemistry products. Are there any official seals of approval for green and sustainable chemistry? And if not, would these help you?
I think there's no specific green approvals, right? Except for some of the consumer products we have in terms of cleaning range, where we have a Green Pro certification given by CAI, which is the highest industry body in India. But in terms of our industrial solutions, there are no specific sustainability specific approvals, but some of them are there, which are, I would say, segment or industry specific. For example, in textile, there's a GOT certification required. There's a ZDHC, which are different levels in terms of depending on the stage where you are in terms of your process and sustainability, etc. Right? There are few are there which are very broad on industry, and then you need to kind of meet these standards to kind of offer your solutions to your customers. But I think specific to a measurement or a metric for a sustainability, something is a gap. I think that's something which will definitely be helpful, because it's still a gray area in the market. For example, a lot of claims are there which is green, but there's no clear definition of what is green source, right? Because of which, I mean, it's misleading, and a lot of people use it without kind of proper backup, right? I think important we have a regulatory body which defines what is green and then certifies, so that I think the genuine green solution providers will be benefited out of
Okay.
it and can be.
Well, Colin, is there anything you want to add or ask?
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself before, but I just wanted to kind of go back to that first question when our panelists, they talked about the challenges they face to be a sustainable business. But it would also be great to hear if you remember, you know, a turning point or an outside stakeholder, maybe in government, or, you know, something like ISC3, or a resource like the objectives, or an approach which helped you to overcome those challenges. Just anything that was very helpful for you would be great to hear, if you can think of something specific.
So is there something?
So I will want to mention something here. I started working on green hydrogen way back in 2000, I think in 95 itself, year 95. But nobody was talking about the hydrogen, and pushing at that particular time, in spite of doing a lot of research on that, pushing that into a commercial level was very difficult. But now, when people or the frameworks are there that hydrogen economy is coming up, then it becomes easier for us as scientists to really push that particular invention into a commercialization phase. So yeah, frameworks are very, very important. If we have done any innovation when there is no policy framework or nobody is having recognition for that, it generally goes just into the papers only. It doesn't see the light of the market. So if we really want to have a commercial this thing, so that's why the policies are very, very, very important. Like for biomethane right now, every every policy for every country is now pushing that, I will say that sector to its maximum. And that's why when I am focusing on to the microbial consortia health, uh, 5 years below the line, nobody was understanding why the health of these microbes are so important and why she is doing a lot of product around the health of these microbes, because we will be having one infrastructure, one plant, and crores of rupees has been expended to set up that plant, and maximum amount of waste when we were able to valorize from that particular plant, then only we would be able to achieve the real sustainable development. So yeah, policies are very, very important. Understanding of the society, importance of that particular technology is also very important. So as I was mentioning, segregation is still not, people are not aware how the segregation is affecting to the whole supply chain. So awareness and policies are very, very important if we really want some technologies to flourish.
And as you said, that's also good timing. If let's say you're too visionary and the time is not ripe for a certain topic, then it's difficult to overcome. I understood that.
Just to add to that, as an extension, policy and implementation of policy also important, and that helps. For example, in paper industry, order is, while making a paper mill, any paper mill within a vicinity of a couple of kilometers, I think will have significant order, right? That's a big pain point. While many of the mills earlier were in remote areas, now with kind of population increase, etc., is now part of residential areas, right? Now we see a lot of stricter implementation by the government in terms of emissions and norms, etc., has also forced paper mills to kind of adopt solutions also, wherein we're able to kind of able to meet that. So this implementation of policies also becomes critical.
Smitha, something you want to add?
So I think I'll be very naive to talk about, any kind of principles or policies right now, because I was working more on the awareness and the selection part. But I feel the amount of type of waste that's being generated, I mean, there are so many categories, and for each of them, if there is a policy and a strict identification that this falls here, definitely it will make life easier for a lot of people, especially who are into recycling. Also, if somebody is manufacturing, those kind of policies will help in terms of sustainable production as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, time is already quite advanced, so we were a tad long in the presentations of the two startups. So I guess we should conclude this very interesting discussion. I think you've been great examples for showing, well, for really highlighting also the UNEP objectives and showing what are the benefits you're working on. So we can only encourage other startups. Well, that's the reason we selected you in the beginning. But we can only encourage other startups that might be present here to copy your example, and work in the same direction. It's really useful, and I'm quite sure that that bringing in sustainability in your value proposition and business model is something that that everyone will see as a really real advancement, and we know that also the big companies are working in that direction. So thank you very much again to all speakers for your contributions, for the insight into what you're doing and what the way of your thinking. I hope for you as the audience that was enlightening and helpful. So we invite you to stay tuned. We will very soon announce the next Sustainable Chemistry Club date and the two objectives that we will cover for next time. So yeah, hope you like this session and hope to see every one of you again next time. And with this, yeah, I want to conclude this session. Thank you very much for attending, and have a nice day.
Thank you
So much.
you all.
Bye, everyone.